Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Primetime with Kartik Bajoria. Of course, as you can see, we've switched places because Kartik always talks about seeking your passion, pursuing what you love to do, and there's no better example of that than Kartik. So let's hear his story today. And to begin with, as you always do, Kartik, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It feels a bit odd, but I've been on the other side a number of times, so it should go well. Thank you.
And as always, let's begin with your growing up years. Where did you grow up? What was school like? What was life like?
So, my growing up years were a mixed bag. Most initially, they were in Jaipur, although I was born in Calcutta, but my parents lived in Jaipur. So, my growing up years were here till I was about 11 years old when I went off to boarding school. And um, Jaipur was a beautiful, quaint little town in those times. It was a beautiful city to grow up in, very safe, very warm, very homey. At the same time, my parents had a very difficult relationship with each other, and the atmosphere at home was less than conducive uh, to a young child growing up in that environment. So that obviously had its conscious and unconscious impact on me. But yeah, growing up years were therefore a mixed bag until I went off to boarding school in the hills in Dehradun. And after a few initial hiccups of homesickness and the usual things that confront any new border, it was smooth sailing, and I think I got a new lease of life on the Doon campus where I really discovered myself and came into my own and developed some kind of a self concept and became a confident individual. So yeah, growing up years were good, some bad.
So, what do you feel about Doon really helped you blossom? What is the ethos, philosophy of the school? How did you take to it? And how did it help you grow as a person?
I don't think this is something that is specific to Doon. I think most boarding schools, uh, knowingly or unknowingly, create an environment where you have to sort of fend for yourself. You also have to create your own identity and carve out a niche for yourself because it is a competitive environment, whether it be academics or sport or extracurricular activities. And there are kids from different parts of the country, from various kinds of families, from a diverse set of backgrounds. So one has to work hard. And like I said, it's you really have to work hard and create a unique identity and niche for yourself. And in doing that, I had a lot of help from two or three masters of mine in particular, which I've mentioned in previous interviews as well. And they really sort of became like role models and mentors and father figures to me. And not only did they encourage me to introspect, look within, and undertake a process of self discovery, perhaps more importantly, they also then bestowed me with the courage to pursue the things that I had discovered. So, for example, if I realized that I really enjoyed playing squash or I really loved singing and I was to pursue music, they also additionally gave me the tools or equipped me with the tools to do those things very seriously and not just as hobbies, not just as simple pastimes. So, in that sense, Dune was a very liberating experience. I became acquainted with myself infinitely more. I think after I had been in a fairly, like I mentioned, uh, you know, not so ideal environment at home, I was away from all that stress and tension, and was able to just take it easy, breathe easy, be myself, be myself. I think I think I've hit the nail on the head. I think I was able to be myself on the doonschool campus, and that's what really the campus allows and affords all of its pupils.
Right. I think young children always need someone to guide them. It may not be their parents necessarily, and it doesn't even come happen because it might be a disturbed household. Some parents may not just know how to guide their children, so it's very important to find some mentor at that stage in your life. All right. So moving on after school, what was the plan?
There wasn't one. So I've I've been a bit of a nomad, and I've also been somebody who's been okay. So until recently, I used to say confused. I think I've changed it and said that I really hadn't found my ultimate calling.
Mm,
So there was a bunch of things that one was fascinated by, interested in, passionate about.
mhm,
Um, Primarily to do with the creative arts.
mm,
So one went in that general flow. I did my English literature, English honors at Hindu College in Delhi University. Decided to then go to Bombay and study a marketing and advertising diploma at the Xavier Institute of Communications.
mm,
Worked in advertising for a number of years in Bombay,
mm,
then decided to go and study filmmaking and came back to Bombay after film school, partially in England and mostly in Los Angeles in America, and came
mm,
back to Bombay and started working pretty much in the media film industry in the capacity of an assistant director.
mm,
Um, in hindsight, I think all of these decisions were, like I said, just going with the flow, indulging, very, very
mm,
privileged to have done that, indulging my various um, passions and interests. Film, for example, was an amalgam of many things that I liked to do: storytelling, writing, music, moving image,
mm,
which is why I decided to do that. And
mm,
all of my education and all of my work experiences were extremely rich, extremely enriching, whether it was in the classroom or outside. And
mm,
I'm deeply thankful to my parents for
mm,
that,
mm.
for giving me those opportunities. They stay with me. They will stay with me till my dying day. And whatever I am today is because of those experiences. So yeah, one thing led to another. It was advertising, then filmmaking, then working in films in Bombay,
Mm.
and ultimately, in my early 30s, I think there was a growing discontentment within me. I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. Perhaps things would have been different if I saw a ray of hope in terms of getting to direct something of my own, but that wasn't happening for various reasons. Um, and so I decided at that point to move back to Jaipur.
Mm.
And right before we moved back, actually, I had quite by chance gotten into a classroom at a school to teach because a family friend ran a school, and she said, I'm missing a teacher, why don't you come and substitute? And when
Right.
I did that, it was suddenly like a eureka moment, and I realized that until then I had
Mm,
never ever truly enjoyed anything, even remotely, as much as
mm,
I did teaching and interacting with learners and
mm,
students.
mm.
And so I had that germ ingrained in me, and we moved back to Jaipur, and I knew that I wanted to teach at that point. Of course, it was a huge risk.
Okay, so then you moved to Jaipur, and here you were facing a brand new career again. Did it feel daunting at all? Did you think twice, or you were just so passionate about it that you just dived in head on?
There were a couple of things that happened, and I'm going to be brutally honest. Of course, it was extremely daunting because understand that by the time I was in my early 30s, I had tried my hand at a couple of things and not pursued them for too long. So, in that sense, I had begun to feel that it was kind of the last chance, really, to start a career and then settle into it and make something of it. Having said that, I have always been deeply, deeply privileged. It's a privilege I don't take lightly, I don't take for granted. The fact that I knew that I had the luxury of the experimenting that I've been doing for the past decade, that I didn't necessarily have to worry about, putting food at the table, and there was a certain amount of family backing. So yes, it was very daunting, but at the same time, that constant confidence that I derived from family backing was always there, and that's what sort of gave me a very, very unconscious but very real support to dabble and experiment and try different things. And but I was absolutely certain that now finally I had hit upon what I was going to happily preoccupy myself for the rest of my life, which was teaching, if I could figure out what to teach and where to, and sort of how to go about it and the logistics of it.
So, how did you go about it? How did the whole journey start?
So it started when I did a bit of introspection and I sort of asked myself what I'd be most effective at teaching. I think that combined with a bit of a market scan, if you will, of what there was a need for, a pressing need for. And I again got very lucky because having been in the media and literature and these kinds of things, I had obviously developed a certain set of communication skills myself. And I found more and more upon my interaction generally across the city with young students that communication skills was sorely lacking, whether it was a kid who went to a very modest school or to a very posh one, whether it was a child at an NGO or across the board. Communication skills were sorely lacking. So it just, again, like I said, I got lucky that I was able to add value in that area. And the fact that there was a paucity of communication skills amongst learners and students. So that's what I decided. And how it actually began was that earlier a mentor of mine was the headmaster of a school locally in Jaipur at the time, who very graciously invited me to his school and said, do whatever you want. So that's how the journey began. And then thankfully, Jaipur is a small place. And if I may say so myself, if you're providing a good product, word gets around. And I started getting more and more students coming in for communication skills and everything under that umbrella, whether it was fiction writing, non-fiction writing, public speaking. Simultaneously, other friends of ours who started a beautiful place called the Open Space Society made me their writing mentor, and we started doing short and medium term writing workshops there, again, fiction and non-fiction. So a few things happened simultaneously, lots of opportunities came my way, and it just sort of took off.
Right. You're absolutely right. And communications in general, I think the parents especially don't really pay heed to it because they just feel that the child should concentrate on a particular subject or the subjects that the school is teaching, not realizing that unless a child is able to communicate what he's learned, it's not going to make any difference. Unless the child is good at his interpersonal reactions, he's not going to grow up to be a holistic individual. So yes, that is a very, very important gap I feel that you filled in this city. I think other cities need it too, and which is why I know for a fact that now you have students all over the world, thanks to the lockdown. Not that we are all very happy with the lockdown, but it has helped you grow as a teacher. That's great. So, as a communications teacher, do you find that you learn things from your students as well?
Most certainly. I think any teacher does, and
Mm-hmm.
particularly in communication skills. I may not necessarily from every student learn
Mm-hmm.
communication skills, but
Right.
what I certainly learn is lots of other things, lots of other invaluable things. For example, I get such amazing insights into an entire generation.
Right.
Also, what tends to happen with a few of my students, at least, more than a few actually, is that there is because I also do most of my teaching one-on-one and not in a group, there is a certain intimacy, trust, and camaraderie that gets built between the learner and myself, and therefore I find a lot of students sharing a lot of personal things with me, not just personal problems, but hopes, desires, fears, triumphs. So I'm privy to a lot of personal information of a lot of my students, which also therefore enriches me and educates me. I have a keen understanding, I feel, in all modesty, of how youngsters think, what propels them, what fears they have, what anxieties they have, what gets them excited, what is the kind of popular culture that they're into. Lots and lots of learnings to be had every day, and it's very exciting. And also, Anuja, like you said, because I've been really, really lucky and privileged to now have students from literally across the world, I
Right.
also get very interesting insights into how you know how students of similar age groups differ across the world and are similar. So
Mhm.
very, very nice.
So it's lovely how your life has come full circle, where you found mentorship in your teachers, and now you're able to give back to society literally by being a mentor for your students. I think that's, like I said earlier, also, it's very important to find someone who you can talk to, and it may not be your parents necessarily always, because that's a very different sort of relationship. And I hope parents realize that they need to let the children go out into the world, find themselves, and grow as individuals. So, Karthik, what are future plans further in the pandemic? Any workshops? Do you think physical classes will start anytime soon? What do we expect from you in the future?
Well, I have lots of things uh, on my mind. I would love to restart physical classes, but I'm a cancer survivor, so I'm just being a little cautious about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe physical classes I will keep paused for a little while longer. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to do lots of things. For example, I think that it will be very exciting to explore writing through art and vice versa. And in order to delve into that, I've been in talks with a local person here who has a beautiful establishment to do a joint art and writing workshop.
Right.
I think that's something that will be extremely exciting. I hope to be back at the Open Space Society doing more workshops at TOS physically as well as the online with them, because online with them, again, what happens is that I get a very diverse set of students that span, countries from Southeast Asia to the Middle East. So yeah, I think future endeavor. A lot of people keep telling me to start my own institute. I'm a bit wary of doing that because I essentially want to be in the classroom teaching, whether that be virtual or real. Um,
To be
because that
exclusive, so you can do
sorry.
both. I'm saying it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You can do both. Have an institute.
Yeah, but I don't know. Perhaps I feel that it dilutes my attention a little bit. Maybe I'll change my mind. I don't know. But
Maybe in
yeah,
time.
as far as the future is concerned, just lots more teaching, more innovation. I'm constantly trying to make my, because I've also had students who've been with me now for over 2 years. So you can imagine post 50, 60, 70 sessions in communication skills, one is constantly having challenged and having to invent and come up with more newer course material. See, all the course material that I use is of my own. It's my own intellectual property that I've developed over the 9 years that I've been teaching, and I'm extremely proud of it, and I have a huge sense of ownership towards it. And again, in all modesty, I think there's very little, uh, um, intellectual property of that quality out there. So I also constantly enjoy adding to that roster and that portfolio of material that I've created. So lots more material is going to be developed in the coming future, and exploration of communication skills and writing through different platforms such as art.
Right. And now that you're talking about art and writing together, I think both these mediums are extremely therapeutic. So I would recommend to older people, not just students, to explore writing, to explore art, because we're all going through really tough times, and we should do whatever we can to vent our emotions and just feel better, and let this also pass. Okay, I have one last question to ask you, Kartik. I also, of course, know that you write a lot. Is that another way you reach out to students? And you do love writing. So, how do you channel that energy of yours?
That's a great question, and it gives me an opportunity to show off a little bit, because when I started this final endeavor of mine, 9 years, getting into 10 years now of teaching, I actually came up with a tagline for myself. And that tagline was three simple words. It was write, educate, and moderate. And I'm very, very happy and proud that I have done all three consistently and really persevere. And all three actually, sort of come together and act as this one potent force to reach students and hopefully inspire a few of them. So, as far as my writing goes, and to answer your question directly, I do a bunch of writing, and more and more of that writing in the past few years has become across newspapers and magazines and publications, where I am writing either a column regularly or guest writing articles on education, parenting, communication skills. I've also been regularly associated with Times of India newspaper in education, which is both online and goes physically to over 1,200 schools across the country, and in a bunch of other publications as well. So that's a lot of the writing that I do, apart from my own writing, which I do on my website and a few other places. That was right. Educate, of course, I'm teaching through on and offline classes and workshops. And moderate is my small way of hosting, organizing interviews, conversations, interactions with inspiring individuals and people. Again, from the point of view of bringing to youngsters, students, learners, individuals, stories that will be inspiring, that will give them courage, that will show them a path to follow and adopt in their own lives. So that tagline that I sort of, it was a tagline come mission statement, you can say, of writing, educating, and moderating, has fructified in a very beautiful manner, and that's what I hope to continue doing.
Well, more power to you, Karthik, and I'm very glad I could help you get your story across to whoever's watching. I, of course, knew all of this, and I would just like to end this by saying, one of my favorite lyrics of one song is that some of the most interesting 40-year-olds that I know still don't know what they do. So it's all right if you don't know what you do. try and keep working hard, try and keep playing hard, enjoy life, follow your passions, and you will find your calling. So thank you everyone for watching, and that's it from us today.